most of the things that drive us crazy about customer service is done on purpose, right?
I am Shauna, and I'm joined once again by the lovely Amas, who I'm nicknaming Noah. You'll find out in just a minute. So
Happy
hello
to be
again,
here,
Amas.
Shauna.
So I'm going to head right in, and I have to know this is the first line that you put in the book, and I've been wanting to ask this question ever since I read it. So you can imagine all of the 100 pages. This has been really annoying me. So you say your customer service experience isn't bad by accident. Most of it was intentionally built to be mediocre. So, Noah, when you were creating all your arcs for all your customers, how many mediocre systems do you think you've actually been involved in, if you had to guess?
Several dozens. I think I make that comment to simply say that, it is no accident that we end up with the customer service we have because it's built on purpose. I mean, at the end of the day, in most organizations, it's just not at the top of the list. It's the thing, let's just do it and let's just be good enough. And very few organizations see that as their thing, right? It's just this, let's just take care of it. And so you end up with mediocrity. That's how that goes.
I find that you kind of end up being on like two ends of the scale. You have good product, bad customer service, bad product, amazing customer service. And where do we get somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I think the thing is really around, it comes down to money. So at the end of the day, you got to kind of ask yourself, if I invest X dollars into marketing, what happens, right? I spend X dollars, people buy stuff from me. And then if I invest a lot of money and I'm great in customer service, does it mean people buy a lot of stuff from me? I think the answer to that is yes, but I think it's kind of one of those things that it takes a while, right? The payoff is not as instant, right? When I put $1 into Facebook ads, today someone will place an order with me. If I treat a customer amazingly, a week from now they'll tell their friends and maybe they'll come buy stuff from me. So I think that's where the reward mechanism leads us to spend less and less resources in customer service. I think that at the end of the day is what's holding us back.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like you can only go off reviews and referrals rather than just like picking companies and hoping that they'll give you good service. And maybe that's what we need to do. Go on to Twitter and see if they've been complained about recently. I mean, we were talking last episode about how customer service is in everything.
Right.
It's like politics, it's everything. And I can think of maybe a dozen personal experiences where I've had bad customer service, and maybe one or two that I can actually say that I've had good customer service. But I really wondered, because obviously you're on two sides of the coin. So as a customer, what would you say the worst customer services that you've had or experienced was?
Look, man, too many to choose from. I will say in general, maybe I have high sensitivity to it, but probably the worst service I typically get are from non-competitive industries. So think my internet company. Oh my God. I mean, I've got so many, so many horror stories there. Think the airlines, right? It's just comically bad how bad they are. So I would say my internet company, right? The cable and internet companies are probably the worst. And I'll tell you the my latest story with them. I mean, gosh, I've got so much. Their gift that
You
keeps
share
on
quite a lot.
giving. But I think recently it's the fact that they sent me an offer, right? They said, "Hey, listen, we want to give you something to make your Wi-Fi better." I said, "Fantastic, sure, I'll take this thing." And so then I called them and they send me this extender. Long story short, what was supposed to be this gift turned into this 3 month deal where I had to call to get the credit and they're charging me. But I said, you know what? Just come take it back. Like
Don't
even
want
when
it.
you're trying to be quote unquote good, they were just
Mm.
god awful. But I want to just correct something that says I'm trying to say that there are customer service is just full of extremes. I think quite the opposite. I think most organizations are mediocrely meh, right? And then there's very few of them, meaning by few, I mean you can count them on one hand, that are like, right? And then very few that are just outright terrible. I mean, what I'm railing against is what we have come to accept. We've come to
Mm.
accept this idea that when I call customer service or any phone number, I have to, be faced with this phone tree from hell. Press one for
Yeah.
this, then I press the two, then it says press another one. Like we've just accepted that as the status quo. I mean, that's what I am trying to really raise the bar of what we consider acceptable customer service, not just the extremes.
I don't know what I'd prefer worse. Like I don't do queues. I don't do telephone trees. I don't do any of that. I don't know what's worse is than standing in a queue at the bank or the post office or wherever, or having to listen to hold music that I don't want to hear for an hour because you're making me sit on hold for that long. Like,
It's it's the would you like to die by poison or a bullet to the head
exactly.
metaphor here. Yeah, I mean, but it points to what I've tried to communicate in saying
Mm,
that it's not the know-how, it's not technology, it's a level of commitment and devotion to customer service that makes the difference. Because
yeah.
otherwise, all you've done is you replace the line at the bank, you stand at the bank and you drink bad coffee and all of that nonsense. And now you can just might as well sit at home. And if you're listening to this going, well, it's your fault for using the phone line. Well, go online and go to the online chat. There's another line waiting for you there, right? There's a reason where it's like waiting for service. You are number six person in this virtual queue here. So it's not, putting another kind of technology or medium to it never really solves the
Mm.
foundational problem, which is that you're not really taking this thing seriously.
What is um I wouldn't the lost my train of thought, sorry. What is the starting point now? Where did it actually start? Because you did say something else and about one of the customers that you were trying to convince not to do mediocre. You said he could hire more people to respond to customers and lower the wait time, or he could use technology to reduce the wait time by moving customers towards options that wouldn't require a person, or he could do a hybrid of both. Each of these three options has some cost associated to it, but the human option is always the most expensive. And you mentioned, that it would cost him, maybe, I think you said $9 million to do the human approach. Is that really what the sticking point is, that people don't want to put in that startup cost?
Yeah, no, you are onto something. At the end of the day, companies, organizations, whatever they are, we're looking for a return. Frankly, it's no different
Mm,
than you and I. It's not this blindly we won't spend X dollars. It's more about what I believe the return will be, right?
yeah.
If the return is big enough, I'll spend anything. So fundamentally, right, the where the customer and the companies are parting ways is the incentive structures are not perfectly aligned.
Mm,
So that, as I tell in that story, if my bank has this incredibly wait times, if the wait time were people lining up in front of the bank, just waiting, dying to hand me their money, like they are trying to sign up for my credit cards,
yeah.
right? I would say spend whatever is necessary to make sure no one even has to wait for a minute and make
Mm,
the experience as pleasant as possible. If, on the other hand, you said to me, these were paying customers who have already paid. I'm not going to make one more dollar on them, no matter how quickly I respond to their issue. and that the return on this is that, yeah, there'll be loyal customers. Okay. Well, then I am, right, because I'm the CFO and I don't believe, right, that there's this payoff in throwing in customer service. Then my answer to that is I want to solve the problem, but all of a sudden I want to do it for less. I want to do it in the most cost efficient way possible because this is dead money. That there is where there is this misalignment in incentives at times between customers and the companies that do business.
So is it really like if we move towards things like referral bonuses, like so if we had more where the customer's opinion mattered more, do you reckon that would make companies want to invest more in having better customer service then?
Yeah, I mean the irony here is that there is already a return on customer service. Like I don't think there's and it's not an opinion of mine. It's already been quantified. But then if you just think about it for 10 seconds, the cost of retaining one versus acquiring customers. Now, it varies by industry and what have you. But the point you're making is a good one in that at the end of the day, whatever these social pressures are, whether it's what have you, they have limited effect. What has real effect is where you choose to spend your money. Now, here is now the two caveats to that. One of that is in some industries, we generally don't have enough competition. The second caveat to that is because the experts are spreading these brands of customer service. In other words, if you just think about it, if you dialed the 1-800 number of 20 companies right now, you won't be able to tell the difference on who you've called. Like menus are virtually alike, even the voices alike, right? Right. So what also can happen is if everyone is sort of the same, different shades of gray, then your incentive to take the airline industry, right? You know, get hired in American Airlines, and what am I going to do? Go to Delta, right? Like what's because they've all kind of copied that, but I think in a capitalistic economy and where we are, if I'm just writing this book so that we, the customer, can sort of realize, gosh, we are waiting for service, and this is not the thing we want. So as we use all of the tools, there is no silver bullets. It will encourage the market because we will reward companies who focus on that, not just constantly rewarding companies who lie to us in marketing advertisements and then never deliver on the back end. So that's where the greatest potential for good might be.
That is actually really interesting. Something's going on. I don't know if it would have reached your ears, but something's going on over here with an energy company. It's a British energy company. They were pushing promotions, referral bonuses, low bills. They just went bust on Monday. So I'm guessing they've gone for the customer service and it hasn't really won for them. And I guess that's where companies are looking at. If I do that and push all customer service, I might end up going bust. So there must be somewhere in the middle where you can kind of, and I think, when we were talking before about it, we were talking about paying more or having, if you want customer service, this is the cost of it. Is that the way we kind of separate it from the product itself? Is that the perfect balance?
Yeah, and I think from my experience, the how is not the problem.
No.
And it's not that there's not a blueprint, right? I can give you companies who have this DNA, right? So think Zappos in the US, right? They make these shoes. They have a return policy. You could return your shoe within 365 days. I mean, it's ridiculous, but they have a cult following. But let me also tell you something else about Zappos. Gosh, for over 10 years, I don't know if they still do it. I used to go to that in the mid 2000s. Zappos and the late Tony Hsieh. Tony Hsieh was the founder. He passed away suddenly last year. But they would have tours in Vegas, and they would take you through exactly how they do everything. They will give you the blueprint on how you can turn customer service into this weapon, how you can monetize it. They'll take you through the call centers, they'll do that. So it's not the how that is the problem. It's not the gosh, how do we figure out how to balance this? That's not the problem at all. In fact, it's why you see that I didn't write the how-to book to those experts at all. I wanted to focus on the consumers because I already wrote that book, right, in 2015. It's called The Curated Experience. There is a clear methodology to do this balance. And to prove the point, every company picks something to do that on, to make that bet on. So you hear me talk about Walmart, who said, yes, the thing we're going to do is price. So I'm not here to say it's a good or a bad thing if you don't sort of focus on customer service. The bias I'm saying is that in the same way as you can choose as your company to say, gosh, we're going to be the best at marketing. We're going to be the best at, lowering the cost of things, logistics. We're going to be the best at that. You can also just pick customer service as the thing you're going to be the thing on. And oh, by the way, I'm willing to put the ROI you would get over the long term in customer service for the cost, right? Versus almost anything else because it's already a customer you already have that you can sort of cultivate. So I don't know that it's them trying to figure out how to balance that because the blueprint is there. Your company can go out of business as well if you go focus on the wrong competitive advantage and then you do execute it poorly, right? So I think in the end, most companies, or very few companies on earth, choose to make service that thing. And I think they are missing out on a big, big, big opportunity, right? If I think about the airlines, we just said the airlines, there's only one that has a loyal following, at least here in the United States, and the Southwest Airlines. Southwest is the no frills. There's no assigned seating. It's like boarding a flying school bus. But yet, because of what they do in this arena, they're the only ones that've been profitable for a long time, and they're basically just better run than the rest of them, despite their no frills deal. And it's because they from early on, they focused on the people experience, right? Their employees and their customers.
I suppose as well, it's also that balance of if people are saying that they're having bad customer service, are they having bad customer service or are they just being an annoying customer? And like I have seen so many videos, obviously only the bad ones get over the waters over here. So, American Airlines or whatever, them dragging people off the plane and stuff like that. I saw a recent one, and I know it's American because they had American voices, but can't remember the actual airline. I don't think they said, where a woman was actually being a Karen and refusing to sit next to somebody. And so the captain actually came out and threw her off the plane because she was holding them up. And I'd never seen anything like that happen before. So I was quite surprised because normally it's like just arguments and stuff like that. Sometimes is it the customer? We as consumers going about it all wrong. I think you kind of do mention that there are ways that we can get around that. But what is it how do we just differentiate between when we're being a bad customer, do you reckon, and when we're receiving bad customer service?
Yeah, it's usually fairly simple to get to suss that out.
Not for the Karen.
There's a term that they use in the industry. It's called brand promise, but it's not descriptive enough. And the way I always encourage you to think about it is, did this company promise me this? And in another way to think about it, right? So I bought a Mercedes, right? And so I get home, so hypothetically I go buy a Mercedes. And so I get home, I drive in my Mercedes, and I'm like, wait a second. This brand new Mercedes 2022 does not have rear view cameras. Okay. Right? I will go give them a review that says, gosh, this is a brand new that. They broke their brand promise because I've seen the Mercedes commercials. The thing looks like it can fly. Right? On the other hand, right? If I went and bought, I don't know, a Toyota or what have you, like an entry model, And I get that. And I am complaining the base model doesn't have rear view camera. Again, I don't think Toyota promised that. Like, this is not their brand promise. And so the line for reasonable versus unreasonable is
Mm,
not as difficult as people think, and it's not as gray as people think, right? It's like you bought a ticket to fly on this airlines. This also did not include, right, a right for you to call the flight attendant names. Like, it's
mm,
clear that these are not in the thing, and it'll be very obvious when it is. And so I think legislating where you fall on there, I know we can all get emotional and get all that, but if you
mm,
just pause him down, the question I usually ask is, did they promise this? And
mm,
implicitly or explicitly, right? It's like the reason any relationship fails is unmet expectations. So did you promise this? Do I have any rights to be expecting whatever this is, that you would answer your phone in 30 minutes? Yeah, I think so. That you would do that, yeah. But that you would give me a full refund and a free ticket to anywhere I'm going. Okay, you probably didn't promise that. So that's how I educate
mm.
those things.
Fair enough. I think you can kind of uh, find it hard if you're waiting in a queue so long, that whether or not it's in person or on the telephone, if you're already riled up and then
Yes,
someone's,
it's
you know,
impossible.
it's like they're asking for you to be annoyed. and
Exactly.
I and I
Exactly.
and I wondered as well whether or not that experience translated in different countries, because when I thought of your Walmart experience, for example, Walmart over here is Asda, or was Asda, it's not anymore. Um, and it was owned by Walmart. That it was exactly the same kind of thing, cheap prices, not promising anything. But I feel like I actually, having been in Asda here and then going to America and being in Walmart, I felt like it was different. And I know you're a jet setter, so I'm curious as to see like what kind of differences, and I'm sure we'll go into it in more detail, but what kind of differences you were seeing when you were in different countries.
Yeah, I think here it seems like it's a little bit faster here for we Americans to take what I called licenses. So what I mean
Mm,
by that is, when I just said, like, gosh, is it a reasonable brand promise? And I said implicitly or explicitly. What
mm,
I Part of what I meant by the implicit is that let's take you're an online retailer. Um, and you've got just a basic website, you didn't promise anything, da da da. And then you go online and you see people bashing you because it takes 10 days for your goods to get there. And you're going, I never, when you checked out clearly, da da da. Well, that would be a reasonable expectation in my mind. You know why? Because you're not the only one setting the expectations for your brand.
mm,
Amazon is setting expectations for your brand. So here I'm much more likely to go, oh, 2 day shipping now is standard. So that anyone, I don't care who you are, even if my next door neighbor started an online shop, if he or she's not shipping in 2 days, I'm like, wait, what is this, 1995? So there is that kind of that. Whereas I find in other parts of the world, they're a lot more discriminating, and right, and the expectations seems more reasonable and contained because they go, I am at the discount shop, I should have
mm.
this. Walmart is not going to ship it in 2 days, but that's not true here. And to that point, Walmart now has 2 day and same day shipment because they have had to. The standard has been
Keep
set
up.
by someone else. I cannot tell you, even me as a consumer, I bought something from somewhere else, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and the return process, I had to go do all of this. I couldn't just take it like I do with Amazon and just, throw it over the fence. I don't even have to box the thing. And I was completely annoyed by them. And I'm like, I'm never shopping here again. But the truth of the matter is they never promised that. They were the opposite of, but my culturally, I'm going, no, you have to, everyone has to copy Amazon.
Well, they do definitely set a standard and get rid of small businesses. And sometimes I think small businesses, they're they're more willing to fight for your custom, and therefore you get their service, but they're harder to find because people like Amazon who are not necessarily giving you that good service and stuff like that.
Right.
Why do you think that we stay in the status quo, really? So you mentioned before about where we're all being kind of mediocre and being in the middle. Does any of the changes that are going on right now, we talked before about the Great Resignation, about Me Too and all the movements and people speaking out more and people having more voice. Has any of that pushed the status quo already, do you think?
Yeah, I think that maybe the biggest change is, most of the public is now sensitive to how difficult the job customer service can be. And it doesn't need to be this job. It doesn't need to be a heroic job at all. It could be a very boring job. It should be a very boring job, but it's so exciting because you've put this person, and we always say in the middle between the customer and the companies, and it should not be that way at all. So because of all of us experiencing really, really bad service, even worse than pre-COVID. But instead of pointing fingers at the customer service employees, I think for one, the conversation is shifting into, yeah, these people do put up with a lot, or they paid enough and they're doing all of that. So I think that piece of the movement where I think it'll make a difference is that it'll make the companies hopefully begin to focus more on customer number one, which is the internal employee.
Internal employee, and we haven't really spoken much about the employees that work there, and you do mention a lot about how the treatment of it, like the fact that they have no power, even when you're speaking with managers, it's kind of like there's not really anything that they can do, and it's like they've put intentional barriers in their people as well as their phone lines and tellers that stop customers from actually getting good service. Would I be right in making that assumption?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I almost think about it like raising children, right? Like you get this child, it's happy and what have you, and then you spend 18 years teaching it how to be miserable. Like that. And then you're like, now you're an adult, go be miserable like the rest of us. It's very similar to what happens in customer service. You get this person who is here in part because they want this thing where they want to help the public, and then you spend several weeks stripping all their humanity from them. Then you force them to start talking like they're in a hostage video, right? It's like, now you must say this. Here's your script. Here's your policy. Thank them for being here for how many hours, and it's on and on and on. And what you're left with is this sterile interaction between a customer and an employee. So the greatest threat between you and good service talking to that person is the actual company that just keeps getting in their way. They give them these terrible systems. They've got to go from screen to screen. Don't we find it odd that every single company on earth that we talk to, the systems are always running slow every single day? What are they using the same shitty IT company? Like, what is happening here, right?
Using some like a Sage system or something.
Yeah, and this is part of the problem. So no, you are exactly right. It's so when you are interacting with a customer service employee, oftentimes they are quote unquote on your side. They too are just a prisoner to all the nonsense and the bad the bad policies and systems they have in place.
What was the number one? Because you spoke about how you had spoken to a lot of the customer service employees. What was the number one complaint of that you found that they were saying to you about working in that industry? Or
Gosh,
role, should I say?
Yeah, every year I talk to dozens of customer service employees, if not hundreds. And it varies, but it's always something around empowerment. And empowerment is get out of my way, give me tools. Basically, you are tying my hands to do my job. I know what I
Yeah.
want to do. Like, you are tying my hands by not giving me the tools, by not giving me the access, by not giving me authority. Um, over and over again, that comes through. And then side by side to that, they don't articulate it this way, but something I've called, right, the cognitive workload. What I
Mm.
mean by that is, if you've ever worked in customer service, you're listening and you did it, you just find yourself mentally just doing these gymnastics, because you got to remember, okay, there are these 6 systems. I got to log on to this. I got to remember to say that. Someone is listening to this call. I'm going to make sure I do this promotion. Like, there's
Mm.
just so much of that. And what that does to your conversation is, you're not spending that cognitive load focusing and connecting and looking your customer in the eye, if it's video, or paying attention to the words of their voice. You
Yeah.
are multitasking, listening to them and trying to figure out, how do I navigate the system? Did I remember to say this? Did I do that? So that there, my empowerment and this cognitive load, both of those things conspire together to get in the way of me delivering the best possible service.
Yeah, I probably agree with them as well. I think my worst experience is just the scripts. It's kind of like, I do understand like how to speak to customers. I don't need to like read line for line what you put. What was your personal peeve rather?
My personal pet peeve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, above all of that, it's the sort of babysitting that always was meaning the gotta ask for permission for this, tracking when I'm in the bathroom, doing this. I think that whole big brotherishness,
Mm.
the recordings are not, just there for quality and and training purposes. They're there to be weaponized against customer service employee. All right, remember on that Tuesday, the day of our Lord, November 15th at 12:11 a.m. You said these words. Did you not? What am I on the stand? Like, it's
You
those are
get
the things that make it even worse.
Can you plead the fifth in those situations?
Like, I don't remember. It's been 3 weeks ago. Leave me alone.
No, I do. No, I will leave you alone for now, but I want to come back and talk about some of these industries in a little bit more details, a bit more about the airlines, a bit more about, all of the different sections that you spoke about. But we are out of time today, so I look forward to when we pick this up next time. Thank you, Amas.
Thanks for having me.